Despite Microsoft removing the last remaining ways to bypass needing a Microsoft account to set up Windows, and for questionable reasons that I'll get to, there is still one remaining easy and official way to set up a local account. But there is one catch. I'm Theojo, and let me show you how to do it. So at this first screen, you want to choose to set up for work and school, not for personal use. Then click Sign In Options, and finally click Domain Join Instead. That's literally it. You can then choose your local username, set a password if you want or not, and continue on. You don't actually even need to join an Active Directory domain, it's called. And this is not new, by the way. You could always do this. Now, at that point, if you are connected to the internet, it will still force you to download and install the updates right away. But if you're not connected to the internet, it won't, and it won't bother you about it. But in any case, after that, the only other thing it'll ask you is for your privacy settings, which it asked me twice for some reason, and then it'll go into Windows. But now for the big catch. And that is that first screen that lets you choose between installing for work or personal use will not show up on Windows Home Edition. It's only for Pro Edition and higher, like Education, Enterprise, or whatever. Now, normally I would say that if you really care that much about using a local account, you probably should be using Pro Edition anyway. It does legitimately also have additional useful features for power users anyway. However, some people have made a really good point that even if you intend to set up and use Pro Edition later, if you bought a pre-built computer that has Home Edition pre-installed and you go to set it up, you have to go through the Home Edition flow, which means that you would have to set it up initially with a Microsoft account unless you wanted to reinstall, which would be annoying. Now, there's nothing stopping you from setting it up with a Microsoft account initially and then switching to a local account. You can still do that, but if you want to set it up initially, you have to use the local account. And also, I think if you don't use a local account, you don't really have control over what the username folder is called. So you might have to end up making a brand new account that is local and then switching to that and deleting the old one. Now, to be clear for a second, I'm not saying that if you don't care that signing in with a Microsoft account is bad, that you shouldn't do it. It's just that if you really want to sign in with a local account, you should be able to do that. Anyway, you might be wondering why they're even doing this. I mean, it was already hard enough. You had to really know how to do it and specifically try to use a local account. So what do they really care? Here's what they said in the blog post for the build that removed this feature. And to be clear, this is not yet in stable builds of Windows. It's just in the developer branch, but they're clearly going to do it soon. Anyway, in the update notes, it says local only commands removal. We are removing known mechanisms for creating a local account in the Windows Setup Experience, OOBE. While these mechanisms were often used to bypass Microsoft account setup, they also inadvertently skipped critical setup screens, potentially causing users to exit OOBE with a device that is not fully configured for use. Users will need to complete OOBE, that stands for Out of Box Experience, with internet and a Microsoft account to ensure a device is set up correctly. I mean, okay, you read that, it sounds serious, like they might be skipping important steps, but I was skeptical. Exactly which critical setup screens are they talking about? So I tested it before and after on a stable current version of Windows ISO installer, so one where the bypass will work. And I used this most recent command, which is the working one that everyone uses, which you just enter into the command prompt by pressing Shift F10, and then you can still bring up the command prompt. Anyway, after you type in that command, it brings up this Windows 10 style box that lets you, as usual, choose a username and password, and then after that, the only screen that it shows you is the privacy settings. And then once selecting those, it just takes you right into Windows. Though you might notice that's the same exact flow that we went through when using the domain join method, the official one, especially when offline, when it didn't even ask for updates. So what are these so-called critical screens that it was supposedly skipping? Well, next I went through the normal Windows 11 Home setup without doing the skip, and for that one, this is the flow that I went through. First, it asks you to choose a Windows Hello pin, so that's one that didn't show, although that one also didn't show in the domain join either. This also asks you to choose the privacy settings like before, and then from this point on, it's all new ones. So it asks you if you want to restore your settings from another device, though that wouldn't even apply if you were not signing in with a Microsoft account anyway. Then it asked me again if I was really sure about it. Next was the customize your experience screen, which I always skip anyway. Then there was this other screen if I want to connect my phone to Windows. Then another screen asking if I want to connect my phone, but to back up my photos. Then there was this screen to set up Edge as your default browser, I guess, or import your other browser settings. Again, if you're setting it up new, why would you need to do that? And now we definitely get to the really important ones, a free trial promotion for Microsoft Office. You know what? I'm feeling so lucky. They definitely don't just show this to everyone. Then another promotion trying to get me to make a Outlook account. Are we done yet though? No, we have another critical setup screen asking if I want to sign up for Xbox Game Pass for PC. Definitely a good thing we didn't skip this. And then finally, we are in Windows. I mean, to me, it seemed like the only setup screen that was remotely important that we skipped, that didn't even get shown in the official way, was the Windows Hello Pin one. But if it was so important, why does the work one not even ask you for that? The ones asking if you want to restore your previous settings wouldn't even apply if you were using a local account, and the rest of it was just promotional junk. Or even for the phone setup feature ones, you could just set that up afterwards. So, in my opinion, their reason being that, oh, it prevents people from skipping critical setup screens doesn't really hold water. It seems like an excuse to me. And I also really don't like how you can't even set up a local account if you have no internet. To me, that makes no sense at all. Now, that all being said, like I mentioned before, it's not like a bad thing necessarily. If you don't care, signing up for a Microsoft account is fine and signing in with one. In fact, if you're not a tech person, it's probably the better choice, just like I would suggest if you use a Mac, signing in with your Apple account. If nothing else, just to have those settings backed up. And also, since a lot of devices auto-encrypt using BitLocker these days, most people are not printing out and storing properly their encryption key. So the Microsoft account at least has that backed up automatically, where most people don't even know what that is. And you really should be encrypting your computer if it's a laptop, for example. So while I kind of get why they would strongly encourage people to use Microsoft account, I don't really get why they're forcing it. Even without an internet connection, you can't even use your computer without an internet connection. That seems absurd to me. And even if you say, oh, well, you need to get the latest updates, well, if it's not connected to the internet, then what difference does it make? And sure, there are security implications for not having an up-to-date version of Windows, especially if you happen to be installing with a very outdated installer. But maybe one workaround, if they cared so much to do it, would be have it so if you choose to set up Windows without updating first, then maybe the first time it detected an internet connection, it wouldn't actually let you connect to the internet without running those updates. Like, your computer would still work and everything, but it's like, look, if you want to actually connect to websites and stuff, you have to install the latest updates. I think that'd be a reasonable middle ground. But the fact that they just completely block you from even setting it up, I don't like that at all. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys think, especially if you really prefer to use a local account, what your reasoning is. There's probably a lot of different reasons. Or maybe you don't care and you just use a Microsoft account because it's a lot easier, which is totally reasonable for most people probably. Now, if you want to keep watching, next up I'd recommend a video, especially if you're still using Windows 10, you can actually get free extended updates. It does also involve using a Microsoft account, but hey, you can get Windows 10 for another year without having to upgrade. I'll put that link right there you can click on. Also, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a big giant thumbs up. It helps out. Also, if you want to subscribe, I try to make videos about twice a week, so it should be worth it. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.